Hi everyone, Cam here from Yes Auto, and today I'm going to be driving this thing. It is the Peugeot 508 PSE, and it's proof that the French car maker has got its mojo back. You see, next year Peugeot will return to the Le Mans 24 Hours with its own hybrid hypercar in a bid to try and finally beat Toyota. And this 508 is sort of a byproduct of that. You see, PSE stands for Peugeot Sport Engineered. So not only has this been fettled by the same team that's going to try and win Le Mans next year, but it's actually a statement of intent that Peugeot wants to establish itself as a proper sports brand. So, does this 508 PSE live up to the hype? Well, we're about to find out. But before I get into the drive, remember to hit the like button and subscribe for more awesome videos just like this one. Mistaking the 508 PSE for a standard version because this thing has so much road presence. It looks very different to the standard car, and it all starts off with having lots of black trim, no chrome to see here whatsoever. Even the Peugeot badge, which is actually the old version, I'll put the new one up now, that's in gloss black instead of chrome. We've also got the 508 logo on the front of the car. Really weird to see the model designation at the front of the car, but Peugeot does that for the standard 508s as well. Although on the PSE we have these three yellowy, greeny marks down the side. They say it's claw marks, just looks like three lines to me, but we'll go with claw marks. Bit further down, we've got these ducts either side of the bumper and highlighted by this greeny yellowy trim. Just looks really cool and screams hybrid, which we'll get onto in just a minute. Further around, we've got these weird little fins at the side of the car which remind me a lot of the Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo. Now, they're done a little bit differently to the Cross Turismo because you have a fin here and then another fin here on the Cross Turismo. On here you've got one there and the other one is at the back of the car. I think it looks pretty good at the front, although what's quite strange is that this is a sticker and it does feel and look quite cheap. You've got the same pattern on the wheels, although on here it's printed, so not sure why they could do it for the wheels and not the bodywork. And these are bespoke 20-inch wheels for the PSE, and they look absolutely fantastic. A bit further back, this is the station wagon version, the SW, so it's an estate. I just think it looks absolutely stunning. It's got so much presence, and you know what? The first thing I thought when I saw this is, they have to enter this in the British Touring Car Championship. Peugeot, go back to the BTCC and enter the estate version. Again, we've got the fins back here as well, and then we've got another set of fins at the back of the car. It's certainly a slightly fussy look in all fairness. And at the back, more gloss black, Peugeot name in gloss black at the back. God, this car has just such a fantastic rear design, really aggressive and really mean looking. Also got a nice chunky diffuser, twin exhausts, and they are real as well. So let me know what you think of the PSE design. Do you think it gives the car an extra layer of aggression, or do you think it's a bit fussy? I quite like it, but I kind of think the odd fin around here and there is just a bit over the top. No denying it's got real road presence though. Now the PSE isn't just a body kit with a slightly faster engine, we've also got some really big chassis upgrades as well. And it all starts off with bigger brakes supplied by Alcon. We've also got stickier tyres. These are Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. And you also have a slightly more negative camber on the wheel. So that means the top of the wheel sits slightly further into the car than the base does. Now, in racing terms, that does increase tyre wear a little bit, but it makes the car a lot pointier and much more keener to steer in. And another upgrade as well is that the track at the front of the car has actually been increased by 24mm and 12 at the rear. Again, just to give the car a bit more dynamicism on the road. And to top it all off, we've also got unique anti-roll bars at the front and rear of the car. At the heart of the PSE is this thing, a 1.6 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, producing 197 brake horsepower, which sounds rubbish now that I've said it, but it's the same motor that you get in the 225 hybrid, only with a bit more power, and being a hybrid, it means that it's connected up to an electric motor. When the two are combined, they produce a cumulative 355 bhp, which is much more like it. It's also connected up to a battery, meaning that you can drive it on electric energy alone. And if you top it all up, it'll go for 26 miles, which is not bad, but also not great. And the same can be said for the car's 0 to 62 time. Now, we've got an 8-speed automatic gearbox in here and all-wheel drive, and it'll go from 0 to 62 in 5.2 seconds. It's quick, but also not nearly as fast as something like a VW Golf R. Now, being a plug-in hybrid, it means that we can plug it in to charge it up. Now, we don't have a fast charger at the back here, but it doesn't really matter. If you hook this up to one of your home chargers, you should be able to go from 0 to 100% battery in around an hour and 45. Of course, you can also charge the car up on the go using the petrol engine, but just bear in mind that that will use up a lot more fuel. Now, before I get into the interior design, it's worth going over how much this costs, and it's a lot. The 508 PSE station wagon that we have right here is £55,000. And if you want the saloon, it's only a little bit cheaper at 54 grand. Now that puts it up against some serious rivals like the Audi S4 and the BMW M140i. In fact, this is actually more expensive than the BMW and the Audi. So it's got to really wow. Now, the interior is pretty standard 508, and if you want to watch our review of the 508, click the link in the top right-hand corner. So I'll just go over some of the PSE touches, and that mainly includes the stitching around the center console here on the steering wheel, and we also have some PSE graphics on the infotainment screen and the driver's display too. Admittedly, it doesn't really feel like it belongs in a car costing £55,000, and while it looks really nice, just some of the fit and finish just isn't up there with the likes of an Audi or a BMW. Take this retractable cover, for instance. It just clicks and creaks every time you open it, and it just sounds really cheap and a bit chintzy. And the same can be said for the infotainment system. It's just not as good as what you get on a BMW or an Audi. It's not very clear, it's quite complicated, a bit laggy, and also is quite easily affected by sunlight as well, so it's just not a great system. What I will say though is that it's really great having these little shortcuts below it. So instead of having to dig through the system, if I want to get to the music, I just press the music button. If I want to go to the car settings, I just press the car button, and it's really handy because it just gives you a list of all the driver assists. So it's not a completely useless system, and it is handy having those shortcuts there. It's just a little bit behind its rivals. The driver's display though is a bit of a mixed bag, because if I have the steering wheel in the position I want, I'm actually blocking off about half the driver's display. So if I move it below, I can now see everything on the driver's display, but the steering wheel is too low. Just a bit of an odd design choice. The steering wheel though is smaller than what you'd get on most cars, and it's a Peugeot thing. The idea is that it's smaller, therefore sportier and easier to fling about, and it works. I really genuinely like it. Also got nice big paddles behind the wheel as well. Slight odd choice of design because they're metal paddles in plastic holders, so you have the feel of something premium with the click and clatter of something cheap. I don't know why they didn't just make it all plastic or all metal. Bit weird to have it as a multi-part design. Now, space in the back is standard 508 SW, nice and spacious and a good bit of headroom. And the boot, we're looking at 530 litres, which is actually the same as the standard car. So even though we've got all that hybrid stuff on board, it doesn't cut into boot space like it does with some of its rivals. It's remarkable to think that with 355 brake horsepower underneath my right foot, the 508 PSE is the most powerful production car Peugeot has ever made. Which is nutty because in the mid-80s, it created something called the 205 T16, which was a mid-engine version of the 205 hatchback, and it was built for rally homologation purposes. But this thing, an estate car, has more power, and like the T16, it's all-wheel drive. And the great thing about the PSE is that our four-wheel drive system partly comes through electric power. So we've got an electric motor over the rear axle, and we've also got a bit of electric assistance at the front of the car as well. So not only does it have a fair bit of power at 355 bhp, it's also really torquey as well. So when I put my foot down, it really takes off. Doesn't feel ridiculously fast. It doesn't feel like I'm being thrown to the back of my seat, but it definitely feels like a very quick car indeed. Now, I do have a couple of paddles behind the steering wheel which I can use to go through the gears manually, but in all fairness, I would just use really the downshifter to make sure that you're in the right gear when you're going to overtake somebody, because the gearbox can be a little bit on the dim-witted side. And really, it's the kind of car where there's not a lot of feedback through the paddles. It doesn't have a snappy shift like a Golf R does, for instance. So instead, you almost just want to let the automatic gearbox do everything for you. While the gearbox isn't the most engaging thing on the planet, the steering is razor sharp. So you can just tip it into corners and it makes the car feel so much lighter and more nimble than you would expect for a big station wagon. I'd say the only downside though is that it is completely numb. It's really difficult to kind of gauge how much grip you have. Now you can actually change the characteristics of the car by going through the different driver modes. So at the moment I've got it in Sport, which is where the car gives me everything, and the dampers go into a slightly stiffer position, but you can also wind it back into comfort mode if you want, and it will make the car feel much more comfortable. The throttle and brake response will also change as well. So while I've got it in Sport mode, you've got a slightly quicker throttle response and it's a bit more active on the brakes. Saying that, it's still a tad on the vague side. So it doesn't feel like when you're, let's say, putting your foot on the brake, you don't feel like you're really on the anchors. It just feels like you're applying the brakes in pretty much every other car. And it doesn't really wake up either. It's quite a leisurely rush of power. So when you put your foot down, it builds up speed briskly, but not aggressively. Let's talk about ride comfort then. So if I whack it in comfort mode, it really is a very comfortable car. Slight bit of movements over some of the bumps. So again, we're on quite a bumpy road at the moment, and it is finding those bumps and it is throwing me up and down just a little bit. But overall, it feels very comfortable and very relaxed, like nothing makes it stress whatsoever. We can also run in electric energy alone, which I've got at the moment, and when you do that, it just goes completely silent, and it doesn't feel ridiculously fast. It doesn't feel like electric car fast, but the real benefit here is being able to savour some of your petrol for perhaps a longer drive. If you're going backwards and forwards to work, for a lot of people, that could be a 10, 15 mile drive. And if you've got 26 miles of range, you'll only need to use your petrol engine for a small amount of that. Although realistically, you're going to be looking at probably high teens. We all know that WLTP isn't the most accurate thing out there. And this is where I think the 508 PSE really comes into its own, because there aren't many rivals out there that offer a sporty experience with the benefits of a plug-in hybrid. And so while something like an M340i is a better driver's car and is more engaging and definitely feels more luxurious inside, you're not going to get that hybrid benefit, that plug-in hybrid benefit, which works really well if you're going to buy this as a company car. That being said, I don't really feel like I'm getting the most overtly sporty experience while in this. It actually feels softer than a hot hatch. It feels faster than a hot hatch, but softer. It doesn't feel all that focused until you're in the bends and you realise just how sharp it is. So I feel like it's got a bit of a mixed character. I don't have that traditional sense of high power, high levels of grip and feedback. It's definitely a disconnected experience between what I'm driving and what the car can do. But on a more positive note, this is a really great start for Peugeot Sport. I'm really interested to see what they're going to come up with in the future. Mixing in hybrid technology with performance powertrains, there's a lot of excitement there. And this does feel distinctly Peugeot. It doesn't feel like anything else out there. And that's what's got to be really exciting about the 508 PSE. I don't think it's going to have a broad appeal, and it definitely is a bit of a mixed bag with performance and comfort. But I'm glad it's come along, and I can't wait to see what they do next.